Ambassador Taemin Kim stood before the massive crystal dome that housed the Galactic Council. The building stretched up into the clouds of Nexus Prime, its walls made of pure energy that shifted colors with each speaker's voice. He had seen this place in videos for 50 years, but being here felt different. The air itself seemed heavy with the weight of centuries of decisions that shaped the galaxy. Hundreds of alien beings filled the curved seats around him. Some looked like giant insects with clicking mandibles. Others resembled walking trees with bark-like skin. A few species floated in tanks of liquid, their tentacles waving as they communicated through color changes. Taemin had studied them all, learned their customs, their languages, their histories. Today he would speak for all of humanity. So Young Park sat in the human section, her fingers dancing over her datapad. As Earth's trade representative, she had prepared mountains of evidence showing humanity's contributions to galactic society. New medicines, efficient farming techniques, innovative engineering solutions, humans had shared freely with any species that asked. Her reports filled entire databases, but she wondered if anyone here would bother to read them. Captain J-Ho Lee waited in orbit aboard the Soul's Pride. The ship was small compared to the massive alien vessels surrounding Nexus Prime, but it represented something important. For the first time in 50 years, humans had come to the Council not as beggars seeking scraps, but as equals demanding recognition. Council Prime Velthar rose from the central podium. The ancient reptilian scales had turned silver with age, and his yellow eyes had witnessed 2 centuries of galactic politics. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of someone who had never been challenged. "We gather today to review the petition of the human species," Velthar announced. His words echoed through translation devices, reaching every being in the chamber. After 50 years of probationary membership, they request full council status. A ripple of sound passed through the assembly. Some species clicked approval, others hummed disapproval, and a few remained silent. Taemin had expected this reaction. Humans were still newcomers in a galaxy where some civilizations had existed for millions of years. "Ambassador Kim," Velthar continued, "you may present your case." Taemin walked to the speaking circle. The floor beneath his feet glowed with soft blue light, and suddenly his image appeared on screens throughout the chamber. He looked up at the sea of alien faces, some curious, others hostile, many simply bored. "Honored Council," he began, his voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. 50 years ago, humanity took its first steps into the galactic community. We were young, eager, and perhaps too quick to trust. We offered our friendship to any who would accept it. He paused, letting his words sink in. In those 50 years, we have established peaceful colonies in 47 systems. We have shared our knowledge freely. Our medical researchers have helped cure the Andorian plague. Our engineers designed the new trade stations that increased commerce by 30%. Our farmers developed the crop varieties that ended famine on 6 worlds. So Young smiled from her seat. Every word Taemin spoke was backed by solid data in her reports. The numbers did not lie. "We have proven ourselves as builders, healers, and partners," Taemin continued. "Today we ask only for what we have earned. Recognition as full members of this council." When he finished, the chamber fell silent. Then War Marshal Kron rose from his seat. The insectoid being's forearms spread wide as his mandibles clicked with what humans had learned to recognize as laughter. "Full membership?" Kron's translated voice dripped with amusement. "These humans speak of 47 systems as if it were an achievement. The Dominion controls 400 systems. The hegemony spans 600. What makes you think your tiny cluster of worlds deserves a voice equal to ours?" Other council members began to murmur agreement. Taemin felt the mood in the chamber shifting against humanity, but he kept his expression calm. "You speak of sharing knowledge," continued a floating jellyfish-like creature from the Aquatic Union. "But what knowledge do you possess that we need? Your technology is primitive. Your ships are slow. Your weapons are crude. You have nothing we cannot make better ourselves." So Young's hands tightened on her datapad. She had documented dozens of human innovations that these species now use daily, but apparently that counted for nothing. A crystalline being whose voice sounded like breaking glass spoke next. "The humans have been peaceful, yes, but only because they lack the strength to be otherwise. Look at their military vessels, small, weak, designed for defense only. How can such a timid species contribute to galactic security?" Taemin felt something cold settle in his chest. These beings saw human restraint as weakness, human cooperation as submission. They could not understand that humans chose peace not from fear, but from wisdom earned through terrible wars on Earth. The debate continued for hours. Species after species rose to question humanity's worthiness. They criticized human technology, mocked human military capabilities, and dismissed human achievements as insignificant. Through it all, Taemin stood silent, watching, learning. Finally, Velthar called for the vote. The results appeared on the great display above the chamber. Of the 312 voting members, only 47 supported humanity's petition. The rest either opposed it or abstained. The petition is denied, Velthar announced. Human probationary status will continue indefinitely, subject to review in 25 years. Kron's mandibles clicked again. Perhaps the humans can serve as useful assistants to the real powers in this galaxy. They seem well suited to following orders and staying out of important matters. Laughter echoed through parts of the chamber. So Young felt her cheeks burn with humiliation, but Taemin remained perfectly composed. I thank the council for their consideration, Taemin said, his voice carrying clearly through the vast space. However, I feel I should offer a small warning. The laughter stopped. Velthar's yellow eyes fixed on the human ambassador. The council may regret underestimating Earth's children, Taemin continued. We came here in peace, seeking partnership. We offered our friendship freely. But if you prefer to see us as servants or threats rather than equals, then perhaps you do not know us as well as you think. Is that supposed to be intimidating? Kron sneered. What will you do, human? Send your little ships to challenge our fleets? Taemin smiled, but the expression did not reach his eyes. War Marshal, Earth's children have survived ice ages, plagues, asteroid impacts, and wars that would have destroyed weaker species. We did not crawl from our world as refugees seeking shelter. We rose from it as survivors seeking new horizons. The difference may seem small to you now. He turned to address the entire council. Today you have chosen to treat humanity as children playing at being adults. That is your right. But children grow up, honored council, and when they do, they often remember how they were treated. With that, Taemin bowed formally and walked from the speaking circle. So Young gathered her ignored reports and followed him. As they reached the exit, Velthar's voice called after them. Ambassador Kim, I trust humanity will continue to honor its obligations during this extended probationary period. Taemin paused at the doorway. Of course, Council Prime. Just as I trust the Council will remember this conversation in the years to come. As the massive doors closed behind them, So Young finally spoke. They dismissed everything, Taemin. 50 years of cooperation, of friendship, of proving ourselves. None of it mattered? No, Taemin agreed quietly. It did not matter to them. But it may matter to us very soon. Above them, Captain Jae-ho Lee received the news aboard the Soul's Pride. As he prepared to depart Nexus Prime, he opened a secure communication channel to Earth. His message was simple. Mission failed. Recommend immediate implementation of Protocol 7. The galaxy continued its ancient dance, unaware that something fundamental had just changed. In the council chambers, aliens celebrated their successful dismissal of human ambitions. They had no way of knowing that they had just made the most dangerous mistake in galactic history. They had told the children of Earth to know their place. Soon they would learn that humanity's place was wherever humans chose to make it. 3 months had passed since the Council's rejection, and Commander Hyunwoo Choi stared at the sensor readings with growing disbelief. The data from his deep space reconnaissance ship painted a picture that made his blood run cold. New Jeju, one of humanity's most peaceful agricultural colonies, had gone silent 12 hours ago. The last transmission had been a desperate distress call cut short by static. Sir, we're picking up debris fields, reported Lieutenant Da Yoon-young from the engineering station. Her voice was steady, but Hyunwoo could hear the tension underneath. The orbital platforms are gone. All of them. Hyunwoo closed his eyes for a moment. New Jeju had been home to 200,000 people, farmers mostly, who had left Earth seeking simple lives among the golden grain fields of an alien world. They had no military installations, no strategic resources, nothing that should have made them a target. Any survivors? He asked quietly. Scanning now, sir. Daeun's fingers flew over her controls. I'm detecting some emergency shelters in the northern continent. Maybe 10,000 people if we're lucky. 10,000 out of 200,000. Hyunwoo opened his eyes and studied the tactical display. The attack had been thorough, professional. Orbital bombardment followed by systematic destruction of all infrastructure. This was not the work of pirates or raiders. This was military action. "Get me Admiral Nam on priority channel," he ordered. While they waited for the connection, Hyunwoo reviewed the sensor logs. The attackers had used energy weapons consistent with Dominion technology, the same species whose war marshal had mocked humanity in the council chambers. But that could be a coincidence. Many species used similar weapons. Admiral Jin-Ho Nam's weathered face appeared on the communication screen. Earth's Supreme Military Commander looked like he had aged 10 years in the past 3 months. "Commander Choi, what's your status?" "New Jeju is gone, sir. Nearly complete destruction of the civilian population. I'm uploading the sensor data now." Nam studied the information with the cold efficiency that had made him Earth's top military leader. Weapon signatures match Dominion fleet doctrine. But that doesn't prove anything yet. How many other colonies have reported problems? "Tau Ceti mining stations went dark yesterday," Hyunwoo replied. "The Kepler Agricultural Consortium reported raids 2 weeks ago. And sir, there's something else. Go ahead. The attacks are coordinated. Same tactics, same timing, same weapons. Someone is systematically targeting our outer colonies." Nam was quiet for a long moment. "Continue reconnaissance, Commander. Document everything. And Choi, be careful out there. If someone is hunting human settlements, they might start hunting human ships next." The transmission ended, leaving Hyunwoo alone with his thoughts and the terrible evidence floating in space around New Jeju. He ordered his ship to begin rescue operations for the survivors, but his mind was already working on the larger problem. Someone had decided that humanity needed to be taught a lesson. The question was who and how far they were willing to go. On Earth, the news of New Jeju's destruction sent shockwaves through the human government. President Mi-sun Kang convened an emergency session of the Security Council, but their options seemed limited. Earth's military was designed for defense, not offensive operations across interstellar distances. Their ships were fast and efficient, but the fleet was small compared to the massive armadas of the galactic powers. "We should file a formal complaint with the Council," suggested Secretary of State Dong-Soo Park. "Demand an investigation." Admiral Nam shook his head. "With respect, sir, we tried diplomacy 3 months ago. The Council made their position clear. We're not full members, so we have no right to demand anything." "Then what do you suggest, Admiral?" President Kang asked. "For now, we strengthen our defenses and document everything. If this is some kind of test or intimidation campaign, they'll likely escalate. When they do, we'll be ready." But even Nam did not anticipate how quickly that escalation would come. The attack on the Tau Ceti mining stations followed the same pattern as New Jeju: complete destruction from orbit, systematic elimination of infrastructure, and one horrifying addition. The escape pods had been targeted specifically. Whoever was behind these attacks wanted to ensure no witnesses survived. Chief Engineer Da-Yoon Jung led the investigation team through the wreckage. Her technical expertise had made her invaluable in analyzing the attack patterns, but what she found made her wish she had never left Earth. "The weapon signatures are definitely Dominion," she reported to Commander Hyunwoo over secure communication. "But there's more. I'm detecting energy traces from at least 3 other Council species weapons. This isn't just the Dominion acting alone. Are you certain?" "Positive, sir. Someone convinced multiple Council members to participate in these attacks. This is a coordinated campaign to drive humanity out of space." The final proof came when the colony ship Gwangju Hope was destroyed. The massive vessel had been carrying 50,000 families to establish a new settlement beyond the galactic rim, far from Council politics. It should have been safe. Instead, it became humanity's greatest loss. Captain So-Jin Lee had commanded the Gwangju Hope for 8 years. She had overseen the careful selection of colonists, the loading of supplies, the planning for humanity's most ambitious expansion yet. When the Dominion dreadnought appeared on her sensors, she immediately sent a surrender signal. "This is Captain Lee of the human colony ship Gwangju Hope," she broadcast on all frequencies. "We are a civilian vessel carrying families to a new settlement. We pose no threat to anyone. Please identify yourselves." The response came in the form of plasma cannons. The massive dreadnought Kron's Pride opened fire without warning or negotiation. Captain Lee had enough time to trigger the emergency beacon before her ship and everyone aboard were vaporized. The beacon's message reached Earth 6 days later. President Kang watched the recording with tears in her eyes as Captain Lee's final transmission played. Tell Earth. Tell them we tried to find peace among the stars. Tell them. The message ended in static. In his private office, Admiral Nam stared out at the Seoul skyline and felt something fundamental change inside him. For 50 years, humanity had chosen the path of peace. They had shared their knowledge, offered friendship, and tried to earn their place in the galactic community through cooperation and goodwill. The galaxy had responded by murdering their children. His secure communication system chimed. Commander Hyunwoo's voice was tight with barely controlled rage. Admiral, we've intercepted Dominion communications. War Marshal Kron is boasting about the Gwangju. Hope, he's calling it pest control and suggesting that other council species should follow his example. Nam closed his eyes and made a decision that would reshape galactic history. Commander, return to Earth immediately. Operation Silent Thunder is now active. Sir, I'm not familiar with that protocol. You will be. And Commander, tell your crew to prepare for a very different kind of war than anything the galaxy has seen. Across human space, similar conversations were taking place. The loss of the Gwangju Hope had broken something in the human psyche. These were not soldiers who had died fighting for their beliefs. They were families seeking new homes, children who would never see their first alien sunset, parents whose only crime was believing that the galaxy had room for everyone. Director Sung-Ho Yoon of Earth's Advanced Warfare Division received his activation orders at Oro 300 hours. He had spent 15 years developing contingency plans that everyone hoped would never be needed. Plans based on the hard lessons Earth had learned during the corporate wars, when humanity had turned its weapons on itself and discovered just how efficiently they could kill. Begin Phase 1, he told his assembled staff. Target identification and preliminary reconnaissance. I want detailed information on every Dominion military installation, every command center, every supply depot. And I want it done invisibly. Captain Mi Kyung-oh commanded one of Earth's most advanced stealth destroyers, the Incheon Ghost. Her ship incorporated technology developed during Earth's darkest period. When human fought human in the shadows of corporate warfare, it could move through space undetected by any known sensor system. Where are we going, Captain? Her executive officer asked as they departed Earth. Hunting, Mi Kyung replied. For the first time in 50 years, humanity is going hunting. On the council world of Nexus Prime, Velthar reviewed reports of the human colony attacks with growing unease. The Dominion's actions had been excessive, but War Marshal Kron insisted they were necessary to keep the humans in their place. Perhaps we should reconsider, suggested Council Speaker Threndar, one of the few moderate voices remaining. The destruction of a colony ship carrying families seems extreme. Velthar's ancient eyes studied the tactical reports. The humans needed to understand their position in the galactic order. Kron's methods may have been harsh but effective. There have been no further human expansion attempts. Because we murdered 50,000 innocent people, Threndar said quietly. Because we demonstrated the consequences of overreaching, Velthar corrected. The humans will adapt. They always do. Neither of them realized that adaptation was exactly what humanity was doing. The first Dominion supply depot vanished without a trace. Captain Mi Kyung-oh watched from the bridge of the Incheon Ghost as the massive installation simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, a fortress of steel and energy shields protecting vital supplies for the Dominion war machine. The next moment, there was only empty space and slowly expanding debris. Clean hit, reported her weapons officer, Lieutenant Jun Seo Kim. The antimatter charges placed on their reactor core achieved complete destruction. No survivors, no distress signals, no evidence of our presence. Mi Kyung nodded with satisfaction. The attack had taken 6 hours of careful planning and 3 minutes of execution. Her ship had approached using a trajectory that kept them hidden behind the system's asteroid belt, deployed infiltration drones to plant charges, and departed before anyone noticed they had been there. Target 2 is 12 light-years away, she told her navigator. Set course and engage stealth drive. Similar scenes played out across Dominion space. Human stealth ships appeared like ghosts, striking supply lines, communication relays, and isolated outposts. Each attack was surgical, efficient, and completely invisible to Dominion sensors. Within 2 weeks, War Marshal Kron had lost 40% of his logistics network and had no idea who was responsible. On Earth, Director Sung Ho-yoon coordinated the campaign from a bunker deep beneath the Korean mountains. His command center had been built during the corporate wars, when human corporations had employed private armies to settle territorial disputes. The lessons learned during those dark years now served humanity's larger cause. Phase 1 is complete, reported Colonel Woo Jin-han, Earth's most experienced ground warfare commander. All primary targets have been eliminated or compromised. The Dominion's supply lines are in chaos. Sung Ho studied the tactical display showing human fleet positions across known space. Each red dot represented a ship that the galaxy believed was too primitive to pose a threat. They were about to learn how wrong that assumption was. Begin Phase 2, he ordered. Direct confrontation. Let's show them what Earth's children learned from our own wars. The first major battle occurred at Kepler Station, a strategic waypoint on the edge of human space. War Marshal Kron had assembled a fleet of 200 Dominion warships to pacify the human rebellion and demonstrate galactic superiority. His fleet represented the combined military might of several council species, equipped with the most advanced weapons the galaxy could produce. Admiral Ji-won Kang met them with 30 human vessels. From aboard her flagship, the Terra Nova, Admiral Kang studied the enemy formation through tactical sensors. The Dominion fleet was arranged in the traditional galactic battle formation, a massive wall of ships designed to overwhelm enemies through superior firepower. It was an impressive sight, and it would have been devastating against any conventional opponent. Humans, however, had stopped being conventional the day the Gwangju Hope died. All ships. "This is Admiral Kang," she broadcast to her small fleet. "You know what we're fighting for today. Not territory, not resources, not glory. We're fighting for the 50,000 families who died because they wanted to find new homes among the stars. We're fighting for the children of New Jeju, who will never see another sunrise. We're fighting so that no human will ever again have to bow before those who see us as less than equal." The response from her ships was immediate and unified. 30 captains acknowledged her orders. 30 crews prepared for battle. 30 ships that the galaxy had dismissed as primitive, prepared to demonstrate the difference between advanced technology and superior tactics. War Marshal Kron opened communications from his flagship. "Human Admiral, you are outnumbered more than 6 to 1. Surrender now and your crews will be treated as prisoners of war according to galactic conventions." Admiral Kang's response was broadcast on all frequencies, ensuring that every ship in both fleets could hear her words. "War Marshal Kron, you murdered 50,000 innocent people because they sought new homes. You destroyed our colonies because you could not tolerate human ambition. You called it pest control." Her voice was calm, almost conversational. "Today you will learn that pests can bite back." The battle began with a Dominion charge. 200 ships accelerated toward the human formation, their energy weapons powering up for a devastating first strike. It was a tactic that had worked. For the Dominion for centuries, overwhelming. Force applied with brutal efficiency, they never reached firing range. The human fleet split into 6 groups and scattered in 3 dimensions, using vectors that no galactic species had ever attempted in battle. Some ships dove below the galactic plane, others climbed above it while the remainder split left and right. Within minutes, the neat human formation had become a cloud of fast-moving targets approaching from 6 different directions. "Impossible," Kron snarled as his tactical officer tried to track the human movements. "No species fights like this. Their formation is completely broken." "Sir," his weapons officer reported, "we can't target them effectively. They're moving too fast and in too many directions. Our computer systems aren't designed to handle this kind of 3-dimensional combat." That was exactly what Admiral Kang had counted on. Galactic warfare had evolved according to certain rules and conventions. Battles were fought in neat formations, following predictable patterns that had been refined over millions of years. The various species had become so accustomed to this style of fighting that their weapons, tactics, and even their military thinking had adapted to match. Humans had no such limitations. Earth's military doctrines had been forged in desperate wars where survival mattered more than honor, where victory was more important than following the rules. Human ships were designed to fight in any environment from any angle, using whatever tactics gave them an advantage. The first human attack came from above. Commander Yejin Park's destroyer group dove down on the Dominion formation like hawks attacking ground-bound prey. Their missiles struck the enemy ship's upper surfaces, areas that galactic designers rarely bothered to heavily armor since attacks from above were considered impossible. 6 Dominion ships died in the first 30 seconds. Before Kron could react, the second attack came from below. Captain Seung-Ho Lee's cruiser squadron fired up through the galactic plane, their energy weapons slicing through the lightly armored bellies of Dominion vessels. The galactic convention of fighting in 2 dimensions had left them completely unprepared for true 3-dimensional warfare. "Return fire," Kron screamed. "All ships return fire." But the Dominion vessels could not effectively target enemies that refused to fight according to established patterns. Their weapons were designed for ship-to-ship combat in roughly the same plane. Their sensors optimized for conventional formations. Their tactical computers programmed with millions of years of galactic military history, none of which helped against humans who had learned warfare from scratch, developing their own doctrines through trial, error, and desperate necessity. The third attack came from 6 directions simultaneously. Every remaining human ship opened fire at the same moment, their weapons coordinated through tactical computers that calculated firing solutions in real time. The Dominion fleet, still trying to reform into a defensive wall, found itself under attack from angles that their defensive systems could not cover. "Sir," the Dominion tactical officer shouted over the sound of explosions echoing through the flagship. "We've lost 68 ships. Their attack patterns don't match anything in our databases." Kron stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His overwhelming numerical advantage was evaporating as human ships struck from impossible angles, used weapons in unexpected ways, and employed tactics that violated every convention of civilized warfare. These were not the timid humans who had begged for council membership. These were predators who had learned to hunt in 3 dimensions. Admiral Kang watched the battle unfold from her command chair, her expression calm despite the chaos surrounding her ships. This was not her first battle against superior numbers. During Earth's corporate wars, she had commanded a small fleet against the combined forces of 3 megacorporations. She had learned then that superior firepower meant nothing if you could not bring it to bear effectively. "All ships, execute Pattern 7, she ordered. The remaining human vessels suddenly changed direction, their movements so coordinated that they seemed to be controlled by a single mind. They formed into a spiral pattern that carried them through the center of the Dominion formation, their weapons firing continuously as they passed between enemy ships. Kron watched in horror as his neat formation dissolved into chaos. Ships collided with each other as they tried to track the spiraling humans. Weapons fire meant for human vessels struck Dominion ships instead. The carefully organized fleet that had been his pride became a collection of individual vessels fighting for survival. "Sir, we need to retreat," his executive officer advised. "We've lost over half our ships and our formation is completely broken." "Retreat?" Kron's voice was filled with disbelief. "From 30 human ships? The Council will never accept such a failure. Sir, with respect, the Council isn't here getting shot at by people who fight like demons." The final blow came when Admiral Kang's flagship approached Kron's command vessel. The war spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. In the 3 months following Kepler Station, human fleets appeared at strategic locations throughout Council space. They did not come as conquerors seeking territory or as raiders seeking plunder. They came as exterminators, methodically dismantling the military infrastructure of every species that had supported the attacks on human colonies. Director Seung-Min Lee coordinated the intelligence war from a secure facility orbiting Neptune. His teams had spent decades studying galactic communication networks, learning the weaknesses that peaceful species never bothered to protect. Now that knowledge became humanity's greatest weapon. The Hegemony Collective is reporting complete communication breakdown in their outer territories, reported Intelligence Chief Hae-Young Kim. "Our cyber warfare teams have inserted logic viruses into their quantum networks. Their ships can't coordinate with their command centers." Seung-Min nodded as he studied the galactic display. Red zones marked areas where human operations had disrupted enemy capabilities. The map looked like a disease spreading through the galaxy's nervous system. "What about the Aquatic Union?" he asked. "Their entire fleet database has been corrupted," Hae-Young replied with satisfaction. "Every ship in their navy now has incorrect navigation data. Half of them are lost in deep space and the other half are afraid to move. The cyber attacks were just the beginning." Human intelligence teams had infiltrated Council worlds using techniques developed during Earth's most paranoid periods, when corporate espionage was conducted by agents who lived their entire lives as fictional people. These operatives now moved through galactic society like ghosts, turning species against each other through carefully placed misinformation. Admiral Ji-won Kang commanded the largest human battle fleet from her new flagship, Seoul Ascendant. The massive vessel had been built in secret during humanity's probationary years, its construction hidden in the asteroid belts of uninhabited systems. It represented everything humans had learned about warfare during their violent history, combined with 50 years of studying galactic technology. Admiral, her communications officer reported, "We're receiving surrender requests from the Crystalline Confederacy. They're offering to withdraw from all territories within 50 light-years of human space." "Declined," Kang replied without hesitation. "They supported the attack on New Jeju. They pay the full price." The bridge crew exchanged glances but said nothing. Everyone understood that this war had moved beyond simple territorial disputes. This was about making sure that no species would ever again consider humans to be acceptable targets. On the bridge of the stealth destroyer Busan Runner, Captain Min Ji-song reviewed her orders with cold satisfaction. Her target was the Galactic Military Academy on Nexus Prime, where the galaxy's future officers learned the art of civilized warfare. It was time they received a more practical education. "Are the infiltration teams in position?" she asked her executive officer. "Yes, Captain. Commander Han's people have been inside the academy for 6 weeks, posing as maintenance workers and administrative staff. They've mapped every security system, every defensive measure, every escape route. Then let's begin their final examination." The attack on the Galactic Military Academy shocked the Council more than any military defeat. Human agents had walked through their most secure facility for weeks, studying their defensive tactics, their strategic thinking, their fundamental approach to warfare. When they struck, it was with complete knowledge of every weakness. The Academy's defenses had been designed to repel conventional attacks, massive fleets bombarding from space, ground forces assaulting fortified positions. They were not prepared for enemies who materialized inside their buildings, who knew exactly which systems to disable, who struck with precision that made surgical operations look clumsy. In 12 minutes, humanity's ground forces had captured or destroyed every piece of military technology in the Academy. In 18 minutes, they had downloaded the entire strategic database containing battle plans for every Council species. In 24 minutes, they had vanished, leaving behind only a message projected on every screen in the facility. "Earth's children send their regards. Class dismissed." The psychological impact was devastating. The galaxy's military leaders suddenly realized that their most secret plans, their most advanced strategies, their most classified technologies were now in human hands. Species that had considered themselves untouchable found themselves wondering who among their own people might be human agents. Emperor Velnox of the Greater Hegemony convened an emergency session of the surviving Council members. The meeting took place on a heavily defended world deep in hegemony space, protected by their most powerful fleets. Even so, the assembled representatives looked over their shoulders, wondering if human ears might be listening to their every word. "We underestimated them," Velnox admitted, his crystalline features flickering with nervous energy. "The humans have proven far more dangerous than our intelligence suggested." "Dangerous?" Council Prime Velthar's ancient voice cracked with strain. "They're not just dangerous, they're systematic. They're not fighting like a species seeking victory. They're fighting like a species seeking extinction of their enemies." The truth was more terrifying than Velthar realized. Humanity was not seeking to exterminate other species. They were seeking to break the galaxy's will to resist. Every attack was calculated to demonstrate human superiority. Every victory designed to prove that the old order was dead. On Earth, Supreme Commander Dong-hyuk Park reviewed casualty reports with grim satisfaction. 3 months of warfare had cost humanity fewer than 10,000 military personnel. Their enemies had lost millions of soldiers and thousands of ships. The disparity was so extreme that some species were beginning to question whether resistance was worth the cost. "The Aquatic Union is requesting negotiations," reported his aide. "Colonel Eugene Choi, terms?" Commander Park asked. "Complete withdrawal from all disputed territories, full reparations for human losses, and recognition of human sovereignty over their claimed space. Insufficient, Park replied. They supported the attacks on our colonies. They pay the full price or they join the growing list of extinct civilizations. The threat was not empty. Humanity had already demonstrated their willingness to completely destroy species that opposed them. The Dominion no longer existed as a coherent government. The Crystalline Confederacy had been reduced to a handful of refugee fleets fleeing toward the galactic rim. Other species watched these examples and began to recalculate their positions. The Battle of Vega Nexus became the turning point that convinced the galaxy that resistance was futile. A coalition fleet of 2,000 ships from 12 different species had assembled to make a final stand against human expansion. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history, representing the combined might of civilizations that had ruled space for millions of years. Admiral Kang met them with 400 human vessels. The battle lasted 18 hours. When it ended, the coalition had lost 1,847 ships. The human fleet had lost 37. The difference was not just technological or tactical. It was philosophical. The coalition fought according to the conventions and limitations that had governed galactic warfare for eons. They sought honorable victory, proportional response, strategic advantage within acceptable parameters. Humans fought to win, period. They used tactics that violated every principle of civilized combat. They targeted command ships first, leaving enemy fleets leaderless and confused. They employed psychological warfare, broadcasting the death screams of enemy crews to demoralize survivors. They showed no mercy to those who had shown no mercy to human colonists. Most importantly, they fought as a single organism. Every human ship moved with perfect coordination, every action serving the greater strategy, every sacrifice calculated for maximum effect. The individualistic alien species, accustomed to personal glory and independent decision-making, could not match this level of unity. Admiral Kang's final message to the surviving coalition forces became legendary. You came here to teach humanity our place in the galaxy. Consider this lesson complete. Our place is at the top. In the aftermath of Vega Nexus, the remaining Council species began to understand the true scope of their mistake. They had not simply offended a young species seeking acceptance. They had awakened a form of life that had evolved specifically to excel at organized violence. The humans did not fight like other species because they were not like other species. They were the children of a world where warfare was not an extension of politics. It was evolution in action. Every generation that survived Earth's conflicts became more efficient at killing their enemies. Every war taught new lessons in destruction. Every victory added to the collective knowledge of how to break things that did not want to be broken. On Nexus Prime, the few remaining council members met in secret. The great chambers where they had once ruled 1,000 species now echoed with the whispers of the desperate. Perhaps, suggested one of the survivors, we should consider negotiating from a position of humility. Council Prime Velthar, whose scales had turned completely white with stress, finally spoke the words that everyone was thinking. The galaxy held its breath as human fleets took position around every major council world. Supreme Commander Dong-hyuk Park stood on the bridge of the Sol Ascendant, looking down at Nexus Prime through the massive viewports. The planet that had once seemed so magnificent, so impossibly advanced, now appeared small and vulnerable beneath the guns of humanity's war machine. Around him, the surviving council members' homeworlds were similarly surrounded, each one a monument to civilizations that had forgotten the most basic rule of survival: never corner a predator. Sir, reported Captain Minji Song from her position at the tactical station, all fleets are in position. The blockade is complete, Park nodded. 6 months of warfare had brought them to this moment, the complete and total victory of a species that had been dismissed as primitive servants. The irony was not lost on him. Humanity had spent 50 years trying to earn respect through cooperation and peace. It had taken 6 months of war to achieve what half a century of diplomacy could not. Open a channel to all council worlds, he ordered. The transmission went out, simultaneously to every surviving government in the galaxy. Park's image appeared on screens from the crystal cities of Nexus Prime to the underwater complexes of the Aquatic Union. His words would be heard by billions of beings who had never imagined they would be taking Orders from humans. I am Supreme Commander. Tonghyuk Park of the Human Defense Forces, he began, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had just conquered most of known space. 6 months ago, you chose war when we offered peace. You murdered our children when we offered friendship. You called us pests when we offered partnership. On Nexus Prime, the few surviving Council members watched in their emergency bunker deep beneath the planet's surface. Council Prime Velthar's ancient scales had turned completely gray with stress and defeat. Beside him, the remaining representatives of 12 species that had once ruled hundreds of worlds now understood how thoroughly they had misjudged humanity. Today, Park continued, the war ends, not because you have won, but because there is no one left capable of fighting us. Your fleets are destroyed. Your governments are broken. Your military capabilities have been reduced to whatever small ships managed to escape our forces. The terms that followed were not negotiations. They were ultimatums from a species that had earned the right to dictate terms through superior application of violence. Complete and immediate cessation of all hostile activities against human interests. Full reparations for every human life lost, every colony destroyed, every ship that had died because the Council could not tolerate the idea of human equality. Recognition of human sovereignty over all territories they chose to claim. Dissolution of the old Galactic Council and establishment of a new government with humanity in permanent control. But the final term was the one that truly demonstrated how completely the galaxy had changed. Any species that wishes to remain in this galaxy will acknowledge human authority and accept human protection, Park announced. Those who prefer independence are welcome to seek it beyond our borders. We will not pursue those who choose exile, but we will not tolerate any who choose continued resistance. Ambassador Yoo-Jin Choi stepped forward to deliver the practical details. Where once Tai-Min Kim had stood before the Council as a supplicant requesting membership, now Yoo-Jin stood as the representative of the galaxy's new rulers. The transition period will begin immediately, she announced. Human administrators will assume control of all strategic resources and transportation networks. Existing governments may continue to manage internal affairs of their species, but all external relations will be conducted through human authority. This is not negotiation, she continued, her voice carrying the confidence of someone whose military had just proven their species' superiority, beyond any possible doubt. This is notification of the new reality. You may accept it peacefully, or you may join the growing list of civilizations that no longer exist. In the Council bunker on Nexus Prime, the surviving leaders finally understood the full scope of their defeat. Last Council Prime Kelthara, representing the few species that had somehow avoided complete destruction, asked the question that would define the galaxy's future. How could we have been so wrong about you? Yoo-Jin's response, transmitted to every world in human-controlled space, became the foundation of the new galactic order. You mistook our desire for peace as weakness. You forgot that the most dangerous warriors are those who have known war so long they truly understand its cost. Earth's children didn't want this fight, but since you gave it to us, we finished it our way. The establishment of the new Galactic Confederation proceeded with the same efficiency that had characterized humanity's military campaign. Species that submitted quickly found themselves under human protection, their worlds defended by the same fleets that had conquered them. Those who attempted resistance simply vanished, their systems occupied by human colonists who had learned not to ask permission before claiming new homes. Captain Sojin Park, sister of the late Captain Sojin Lee who had died aboard the Gwangju Hope, now commanded the orbital defense platform above New Jeju. The world that had been humanity's first great loss in the war had been rebuilt and resettled, its new cities rising from the ashes of Dominion bombardment. But these were not the peaceful farming communities of the past. These were fortress cities, built by people who had learned that the price of peace was eternal vigilance. It's strange, she told her executive officer as they watched human transport ships bring new colonists to the surface. 6 months ago, this world was a symbol of human vulnerability. Now it's a monument to what happens when someone tests our resolve. The psychological transformation of humanity was as complete as their military victory. The species that had spent 50 years trying to earn acceptance through good behavior had discovered something more valuable than acceptance: fear. Every alien species in the galaxy now understood that humans were not to be threatened, challenged, or dismissed. The lesson had been taught with characteristic human thoroughness. On Earth, the victory celebrations were muted. President Mi Sun Kang addressed a somber crowd gathered in Seoul's Central Plaza. Her words carried to human worlds throughout the galaxy. "We did not seek this war," she reminded her people. "We offered peace and received death in return. We offered friendship and received contempt. We offered cooperation and received dismissal." Her voice hardened as she continued. "Today we have taught the galaxy that Earth's children will not be victims. We will not be servants. We will not be dismissed." The applause that followed was not the jubilant celebration of traditional victory parades. It was the grim satisfaction of people who had done what was necessary to survive. Regardless of the cost to their former ideals, Director Sung-Ho Yoon, architect of humanity's war machine, reviewed the final casualty reports with mixed emotions. The war had cost humanity fewer than 50,000 military personnel. Their enemies had lost tens of millions of soldiers and countless civilians on worlds that had chosen resistance over surrender. Was it worth it? Asked his aide, Colonel Woo Jin. Han Sung-ho considered the question as he looked out at the stars that now acknowledged human authority. Ask the children who will grow up on New Jeju. Ask the families who will settle new worlds without fear of alien attack. Ask the future generations who will inherit a galaxy where humanity is respected rather than tolerated. The new Galactic Confederation grew rapidly as species competed to demonstrate their loyalty to humanity's vision of order. The old system of competing civilizations and territorial disputes was replaced by human-administered peace. Trade flowed more efficiently than ever before, protected by fleets that had proven their effectiveness against any possible threat. But the most significant change was philosophical. The galaxy had operated for millions of years on the assumption that different species could coexist as equals through negotiation and compromise. Humanity had proven that coexistence was only possible when everyone understood who held ultimate authority. From his command ship in orbit around the former Council capital, Supreme Commander Park received reports from human administrators throughout the galaxy. New colonies were being established at a rate that would have been impossible under the old system. Human population was spreading to worlds that had been deemed unsuitable for colonization by species that lacked human adaptability and determination. "Sir," Captain Min Ji-song reported, "the last Dominion holdouts in the Outer Rim have agreed to full surrender. All organized resistance has officially ended." Park nodded. The war was over. But the work of building humanity's vision of galactic civilization was just beginning. Unlike the old council system that had governed through committee and compromise, human administration was based on clear lines of authority and decisive action. Species that embraced the new order found themselves more prosperous and secure than they had ever been. Those who mourned the old system learned to do so quietly, if they wished to continue existing. In the rebuilt chambers of the Galactic Confederation, Ambassador Yoo Jin Choi took her place at the podium that had once been reserved for Council Prime Velthar.